How are you doing today, Birdie?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm super excited about this interview. We had a little setback here, a little holiday there, but we're here
Mhm.
now.
Yes, sir. I'm excited too.
Okay, well, let's get right into it. Can you just share a little bit about your stories? And when I
Mhm.
say stories, beginning with you as a teenage mother, because I found it not only informative for me,
Mhm.
but just when I began to consider, I knew many teenagers who were pregnant and had children, but I
Yeah.
never really saw it from the standpoint that you presented it to me.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Because I was like, okay, I could dive straight into being a teen mom, but I wanted to give a little bit more content around like how I became a teen mother. Because I think
Come
that's
on.
important, especially with teen moms. But so I grew up in a household where my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses and we were faithful. Oh my goodness. And my father was super intentional about excluding us from the world. So, so I remember as a child, it was called worldly association. So my dad was like, he had created like this fortress around our house, so we couldn't play with the neighborhood kids. It was just us. So I have a sister who's like almost 2 years younger than me. We were friends. That was my friend, and we had a brother. We didn't play with him much, but anyhow, I was just kind of set the background in terms of how I grew up. I grew up in a household with both my parents. We went to the Kingdom Hall like every day. Seemed like field service every Saturday. And again, like I said, my father was he didn't want us to associate with the world. So I said all that to say, when I was, I think about 13 or 14 ish, my parents divorced, and I was super close to my dad, like super close. But then when they divorced, um, my mama and my dad was doing their own thing, if you will, right? So I would say around that time, I started to feel alone, right? And so back in those days, teenage moms was like a fad, I would say. To me, it was a fad. And so not only was it a fad, but it was also for me, I was longing to feel a hole in my heart. So I ended up pregnant at 15. I had my son at 16. And as I shared with you, being a teen mom, I didn't really understand what it meant to be a mother, right? I didn't think about how I was going to take care of this baby financially. I just didn't think about how I was going to care with the baby in terms of basic needs, that sort of thing. So when I was 16, this is when I was introduced to welfare. I didn't even know about that. So I had the introduction to that, what that meant. Um, and I shared the story with you when my son was like, he was maybe 8 months, he became really sick. And I took him to the doctors. The doctors asked me, like, do you feed him? And I was like, when I want to. So I wasn't like the type of mom where I fed my son food like regularly. I really fed him when I felt like it. Now, I did give him milk because I thought at 16, that's all babies needed was milk to live. But, I learned at a young age at 16 that babies had to eat regularly. So breakfast, lunch, dinners, and snacks in between, and milk. So it wasn't just milk for them to live. They had to have more. So that was like my first lesson with having a baby at 8 months. And so just to fast forward that incident, and again, I was just learning. Oh my God, my son had chicken pox. Then the whole family had chicken pox. That too was something else. Being a young mom with a baby with chicken pox, trying to figure that out. But then when he was around, I want to say he was close to 3. I took him to Head Start. And this was like my second lesson of being a teen mom. So I took him to Head Start, and Head Start, it's about the whole child. It's about the family, right? So I took him there. A part of the process is that you have to have a dental assessment, right? So they were like, well, before your son starts school here, you have to take him to the dentist. And I was like, oh my God, like he's 2, he got to go to the dentist. And I wasn't even brushing his teeth like regularly. So that was an aha moment for me. I had to like brush my son's teeth every day. He had to go to the dentist to have his teeth checked. So, just growing up as a teen mom, it was like trial and error. It's not like I had a road map. No parent has a road map. But I was just like learning, bumping, bruises, all sorts of things along the way, from being a teen mom. And I just kept having them. Like I had my second one. So my first one came at 16. My second one came at 19. The next one came at 21. And the last one came at 23. So I have 4 children under the age of 26. And we all know science tells us that the brain is fully matured at 26 years old. So I was just like kind of just making it day to day with children, not even thinking about life. I was just living. And I remember one of my friends at the time had asked me, like, how do you manage 4 kids at such a young age? And I was like, I don't think about it. I just do it. And I think that's how I lived my life as a young mom. It's just like doing it every day, doing whatever needed to be done to care for my children. And so, yeah, that's it. I know that's a long story,
So
but
I told you before, now I'll tell you on camera, I'm very proud of you. I'm very
oh, thank
proud
you.
that you not only did well, but also one of the things you mentioned to me before is that's where your dream job
Mm-hmm.
originated from. So could you share a little bit about that? Because so many times, and when I say so many times,
Mm-hmm.
statistics say teenage mothers trial, failure, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get better. That seems like that's all the movies, that's life, but we know that's not true. And so since from personal experience that's not true, and a
Right.
dream came out of your struggle, and when I say struggle, not in a negative fashion, but just the fact 4 kids, the 4 kids. I just got through watching a friend's 4-year-old and 6-year-old, and I'm
Uh-huh.
watching them. I'm trying to do Toastmasters on the computer, but every time I hear a noise, I get up because I
Yeah.
don't have any children. And so
Okay.
when the mom came back, she was like, everything go okay? I said, yeah, it went okay, but I'm on point. And she said, I
Uh-huh.
know you are. I said, no, I'm on point. I hear noise. I hear
Uh-huh.
anything, which is
That's
what
right.
it's a fairly big house. I can see them, but if they dip down by the couch or the love seat, I get
Mhm.
up and go look at them. They sitting there playing a little iPad. I say, okay. But
Uh,
your dream.
yeah. Uh-huh. So my dream job, so let me go back just a little bit, because I another thing I believe in is purpose. Like we all are born with a purpose. And as a child, I loved babies. Like I just loved them. And I don't really know why. I think just God made me this way, but some of my earliest experiences with children was with my mom was a babysitter, briefly, and she had this baby, and I just remember playing with this baby. Now, I mean, I was young, I did drop her though, but my mom came and got the baby, but I love that little baby, but I was learning. My next step was when I was maybe about 8. I had a cousin. She used to cry all the time, like nonstop. I used to call her sour lemon because she cried so much. And so I took her to the bathroom one day to look in the mirror. And in the mirror, I was holding her, and I was making these faces at her, and she was looking at me like, what's wrong with her? But I kept playing with her in the mirror. And then after a while, she just kept gazing at me. And so now I know, of course, it's about social awareness or social emotional development
Mm-hmm.
with a baby, but I didn't know that. But I was doing that at a young age, and so um, I believe God created me to love children. I've loved them throughout my life, even having 4 of my own. I still worked with kids, and that in itself is hard work. But we'll get into that another day, possibly. Um, but anyhow, my dream job. So, like I said, Head Start just like really opened up my eyes as a parent. And I just was like, man, I love that about Head Start. I love that Head Start um, is there to support the entire family, right? And I think too, at that time, the family advocate, I couldn't remember if it was the family advocate or the teacher, but I don't think they understood the profound effect they had on my life, right? Because that's just like the work that we do. I can say we because I do it now. Like it's just a part of the job, is a part of the passion, is a part of the I'm trying to think of the word, the mission, if you will, right? But they changed my life. So as a child care worker, because that's how I started off, and just worked my way through being a teacher of toddlers, being a home visitor, being a center director, now in management at Head Start. It's just that, man, I want to be a part of changing lives, especially lives that are impacted by poverty and just needing that head start and needing somebody to have your corner and somebody to tell you that you can do it, despite what the world tells you. You can do anything that you want to do. And a part of that for me was like going back to school, getting a bachelor's in social work, because at one point I wanted to, work with families in recovery, which I did in my early stages. But eventually I went back to school to get a master's in human development. So that works for me with the Head Start. And I also appreciate the fact that I have both lenses of social work and education. So yeah, I love Head Start, man. That's my thing. I don't think I'm ever gonna leave Head Start. I'm gonna be there forever and ever. Just because I'm down with the mission. I'm down with helping families do whatever they want, whatever.
This
Sky's the
relationship that you felt
limit.
that you had with children that you've actualized not only through having four of your own, but also continuing to help develop children. What would you say to a teenage mother who's watching this interview? And when I say, what would you share with her, knowing the dynamics? And when I say ups and downs, I don't think anything in life is easy. So I'm
No.
not just making reference to you being a teenage mother. I'm saying, but you have a unique view that I believe you can speak to someone who may be going through that. I work with a lot of youth, and one aspect of our program is a culinary department, and young mothers, meaning 15-year-olds having children, 16-year-olds, the schedule that we have permits them to be with their children. So of course, that's a job that a lot of them want. And if I don't do anything else, I'm going to make sure I'm saying, hey, look, I did this interview with a teenage mom. So, what I can't speak on, she did. So what would you share with them?
Wow.
I know you're mature. I know you've got all the psychology and everything working, but I got to bag you back to that 15-year-old, the pregnancy, and then the next pregnancy. And there's just some things that I believe you understand. It's like for me, when I speak to different men who have experienced some of the same shortcomings I have as far as committing crime, going to prison, hustling. There's just a language. There's a lingo. It doesn't matter if they're from Texas, California. There's just certain things that you can say because you understand the dynamics of what they went through. And that's what I see with you. And no matter how hard I try to comprehend it, no matter how many discussions I have, I know innately, unless you experience some things firsthand, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it trying to give some counsel or advice. You can help, but someone who's been through it, wow.
Yeah. I was thinking about that, thinking about like Birdie now. If I had the chance to talk to Birdie when she was 16, I would say, you are the one. And what I mean by that is like, there's so much doubt in this world, like no matter if you're a teen mom or not, but because we are talking about teen moms, there's so much doubt, there's so much worry, there's so much like feeling like you can't do it or you're not good enough. And those are lies. Like, don't believe what anyone tells you about like like maybe, just thinking about some of the things that I heard as a teenager, that I wouldn't make it far, that I was a statistic. Like that's, can I say a bad word? I'll make it, I'll abbreviate it.
Okay, good. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Let me, because I can't take from your story. So come on, let me, come on.
But I'm gonna just say that it's not the truth. Don't believe the hype.
That's right.
Just you have to like dig deep, and you have to, I would tell young Birdie to surround yourself with people who believe in you and people that will hold you accountable. So like when you are messing up, someone that's going to say, okay, wait, hold on. Let's reflect. Let me help you reflect in this moment, to help you see or to identify some things that you can strengthen. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, but then at the same time, the fact that you're bringing a life into this world, how precious is that? How precious is it that God gave you an opportunity to instill values and morals and love into another creature, right? Into another human, if you will. So I would just say, believe in yourself. It's going to be hard, no lie. It's going to be hard, but reach out for help, and it's okay to ask for help. Don't be shamed to ask for help. Ask for help. Don't put it off. And yeah, sky's the limit. Whatever you want to do. And another thing I think too, society tells us is that once we have a child, that's like it for us. And that's not true. You can absolutely do whatever you want to do. There's so many services out there. Like if you're a teen mom, get hooked up with Head Start. And if you don't have a Head Start in your area, I'm sure that there's other nonprofits that would help mothers. Like here in California, in the Bay Area, we have Bananas. In San Francisco, we have Children's Council. So there's like different agencies that provide free childcare for moms. So I would say definitely link up with an agency like that. Get your baby into childcare. If you're pregnant, get into home base. Home base is a wonderful opportunity too, where you have a teacher come in. She'll give you some educational resources, activities, things of that nature. But then also she'll give you like that social work support. And I say she because we have a lot of women that provide the home base or just childcare, period. There's a lot, it's a female dominated field. We have some men here and there, but primarily is women. But yeah, like hook up with the resources and reach for the stars. Don't give up. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be hard work, but just hang in there because it's going to be beneficial for you and your baby at the end of the day.
And before we move on, because I know you have a dynamic career and you're involved in some things, but I really feel strongly about this. A lot of teenage mothers that I have been allowed to come in contact with, when it comes to the fathers, I'm not speaking because you never shared this with me, but I'm asking a question. Something that I'm faced with a lot of times is there's some anger. And what I try to express to the young ladies in my having been a teenage boy and having dealt with a lot of teenagers and dealing with them, there's a lot of mistakes being made by boys. And one thing I would ask the young ladies, I said, listen, these expectations that you have, let me qualify this statement. As a man, I fully comprehend what he's not doing and what he is doing. But I just want to bring this to the table. A lot of boys have not been taught properly how to handle a lady. And when I say a lady, you're a young teenager, you're a young lady. And so I just try to share with them. I said, man, you're calling him on this and he's not doing this and he out doing that and he out doing this. And all I just want to bring to the table from a male standpoint, sometimes they don't know better. Does a male know, well, I shouldn't cheat on my girl? Okay, he knows that. But what's the follow-up information? Because now I'm speaking from a male standpoint. You tell me don't do something, but you really not telling me how it's going to hurt me. You're really not telling me how it's going to cost me. You're really not telling me where should I find the ability to do it.
Yeah.
And do you have a comment about that in the midst of teenage pregnancies? You know, some of the conduct of the boys that are involved, and because anger is anger.
Yeah.
And whether I hate you for a good reason or I hate you for a wrong reason, when a person begins to have hate and anger and resentment against somebody that they have a child with, at some point that's going to have to be dealt with in a healthy manner. Didn't say they'd be together, didn't say they'd be separate, but I'm just trying to help somebody understand, if it's not healthy for you to think in a certain way, let's reset that. If you have a comment.
Yeah,
This is purely your comment.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. A lot of times when we have hate or some sort of feeling, it really has nothing to do with that issue, like at the moment, right? There's a lot of deep rooted issues. Like, for example, when I said I had a child, it was based off of the hole in my heart from my dad, right? And so I think, as people who work with children, as human service workers, I think it's our job to help children, teenagers, dig out the hurt that's in them, right? Because sometimes that anger is just, it has nothing to do with that moment. It's deeper than that, right? It's like a layered situation, if you will. So I mean, I don't really know, but I feel like a lot of times children have unresolved issues that go far beyond teenage. It goes to younger years. And I think that's why it's like really important, especially working with 0 to 5, that we pour into them constantly, not to a stage to where like their egos explode, because we don't want that, but we definitely want children to have the words to communicate what they're feeling, because a lot of times we don't have the words to communicate. And so what we may be upset with just fester because we really can't communicate the deep rooted issue. So yeah, I don't know other than to help the teenage boys resolve some of those issues that's deeper than that moment with the teenage girl. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you said something earlier about when you had the child in the mirror, and the child, looked at you like that at first and then looked at you, and that term mirroring, whether it's a child looking at an adult and just doing the same things, personally, I believe that occurs in a lot of teenagers, whether it's in relationships with the opposite sex, whether it's in relationships with authority. Teenagers generally mimic or mirror what they've seen. And statistics say, I don't say, statistics say that the family, especially minority families, are under siege per se. And when I say under siege, there are some dynamics at work that it doesn't speak that there's going to be success a lot of times. Now, there have been numerous cases where that's ignored and people have overcome. But what I try to get people to understand, I heard something, and it's not my saying, but a gentleman, I watched him one time during a presentation. He said, "Hey, I want you to hold up your hand."
Yeah.
And he said, "I want you to think of the 5 most influential people in your life right now. I don't care who they are." And he said, "I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about it." And you could see the youth, they were counting. And I actually, because I want to experience what's going on.
Okay.
And his next statement was, whatever 5 individuals have the most influence over you, that's basically who you're going to become. Because the 5 individuals that you say have the most influence over you, that's exactly what they're going to exercise.
Yeah.
And then he opened his hand again and he made a statement and he said, "How many of you out of that 5 have friends, loved ones, whatever the relationship is, that have negative influences on you?" Out of a room of like 30, 2 raised their hands. And he just made a statement. And I agreed with the statement. He says, "Well, one, I believe that 28 other people lying. Because one, we were in a school that everybody in the class is for misbehaving. And it's not lightly misbehaving. It's just not being late. You know, there's some things, whether they were felonies or misdemeanors, there's some things that were done. Right. And I kept that thought on my mind. And just like you said, receiving help, my counsel to anyone watching, if you want better, surround yourself with better.
Yes, true.
And whenever I say something, I try to be real practical. And the bottom line, well, I'll stay here. Listen, I've been in almost every kind of neighborhood it can be. There are positive people everywhere. There are even positive people in the worst prisons across the United States. So there are people. There are some people your age not doing the things that everybody else is doing. It's just whether you choose to associate or attempt to align with those individuals. So my counsel would be, you know, for teenagers, whatever you're going through, I just want to ask you, what 5 people have the most influence on your life? Because most likely that's going to tell you. I can't guarantee it because I'm not God, but that's going to tell you where you're going. Right. So with that being stated, question, and I wrote this one down because boy, you impressed me. So I said, I've got to get this interview ready. What are some lessons you learned personally from early experiences in life that are helping you right now? So we're gonna come on up, but there's some things, I believe that about you. I believe that, I don't know how many decisions, I don't want to quantify, but I believe there's some decisions that you made early on that those same decisions are still helping you now.
Yeah. I was thinking about that question too. And I was like, okay, look, Birdie, what lessons did you bring with you? And it's funny because I thought about my daughter. My daughter had her first child when she was a teenager. And I am so honored. I'm just so honored to see her with her sons. Remember how I talked about my son not brushing his teeth? She brushes their teeth. Like, I know that might seem so insignificant, right? But to me, it's like, look at my baby brush their teeth every day, right? I mean, she started brushing my oldest grandson's gums. Okay, so that just lets you know when she started off brushing his teeth when he had gums. And to see her like make the breakfast for her children and like spend all this time with her babies. So she has 2 of them now. I'm like, okay, I did something right? I did something right with my children at such a young age. And it's like carrying forward into my next generation. And so I would say I made some mistakes along the way in my earlier stages of being a parent, but it's like it went full circle. You see what I'm saying? Like in my children. So I would say my lesson would be to just believe in yourself, I guess. Just believe that everything will be okay. Consistency is important. Having conversations with your children, man. I'm still learning how to have conversations with my children, but I'm just so thankful that I have conversations with my children and started off when they're babies. Talk to your babies, like talk to them, read to them. It's so powerful, man. It's just, and we talked about teenagers, you know, when they were like 2 of them raised their hands in terms of negative energy around them, and what is it, 27 didn't. But I was thinking, like, how do you unpack that? Like, how do you have a conversation about what negativity is and how to identify it? Because perhaps teenagers don't see it as negative, right? And so I said all that to say my teenage lessons were or are just seeing it's just believing in myself, and now just seeing my work come full circle, because it was a lot of work. And I want to say too, as being a young mom and working in childcare and having my children solo bolo is, you know, having my children see me give back. Like, even I was broke, but I found a way to give back to the children that I worked with. So, working in nonprofit, there were children who didn't have access to like crayons, like just basic stuff. And having the money to pour into children that were not my own, but then also taking care of my own kids, right? With minimum dollars, if you will. And so, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but
You answered it because it's what you believe, what you've experienced. And so I'm a firm believer in living in the moment.
mm-hmm.
And even though my preference was to bring this interview roundabout to have you provide some facts about your career, I'm going to go ahead and ask your permission. I
Sure.
think that what we've discussed, and I'm saying the way I'm feeling about it right now,
Mm-hmm.
that's enough for whoever's going to hear this, because there was a strong focus that I believe some listeners are going to garner some facts on. And I'm just going to do it on video. I'm going to invite you back
Mm-hmm.
specifically to speak of beginning with your career, if
Mm-hmm.
that's okay with you. If
Oh
you
yeah,
if you would
definitely.
join me again at some point. I know you're pretty busy. But my last question to you on a lighter note to turn the
Mhm.
tables, because I see those last two, I can't say you went in the zone verbally, but I'm saying I felt something. I said, hold on, she's shifting and moving. And okay, I said, okay. Do you have any questions for me? Because
Um,
I feel like I put enough and I stirred enough with you on this
yeah.
one.
I don't have any questions, but I do want to say thank you for just like giving me the opportunity to share a little bit of my story. I feel so honored to like just be in this space with you and share a little bit about myself. I'm looking forward to coming back and talking a little bit more about my career in early childhood education. Because I think that's important, especially being an early educator myself, just
Mm-hmm.
in this society and in a society that don't see us, like we're invisible people, but we're so needed. We're needed. And we don't have the space to really talk about it, and to promote what we do for us, for humanity, right? Well, I mean, we're taking care of 0 to 5 year olds, and in a lot of cases we're taking care of pregnant moms. And so I'm looking forward to coming back and talking about that too.
We will make that happen
All right.
ASAP, but we know ASAP for you and I. I will do that. I will do that because I want to hear about it, and we'll focus on the career and the
Yeah.
needs being met. So with that, I really appreciate having you.
All right, thank you so much.